Hey guys, another tutorial about StableDiffusion. Today I want to show you how to make an audio-reactive music video with StableDiffusion using the Deforum extension. If you don't have Deforum installed on your machine, click on the Extensions tab, then select Available and Load From, and simply look for the Deforum extension and click Install. After the installation is finished, click on the Install tab, check for updates, and then apply and restart UI. If you still don't see the Deforum tab, you might need to restart Automatic1111 in your terminal app. We will also need the Controlnet extension in the second part of our video. So again, let's hit the Extensions tab and see if it's already installed. If it isn't, go to the Available tab like before, hit Load From and look for Controlnet and then hit Install. Again, hit Check for Updates in the Installed tab, just to be sure that you have the latest version. And then hit Apply and restart StableDiffusion. If it's the first time you're using Controlnet, you will need to download its specific models and save them in your Models Controlnet folder. I will leave a link down below where you can download the models. One more thing that needs to be done to make it fully functional is creating an alias to our Controlnet models in the Deforum extensions folder. In order to do that, right-click on the Controlnet folder and select Make an Alias. Now rename that alias to Models and move them over to Extensions into the Deforum for Automatic1111 Web UI folder. Then again, let's restart our Automatic1111 Web UI just to be safe. Now we are nearly done with our preparations. Maybe one more thing to mention is that I'm not using the StableDiffusion standard model, but a custom model called Inkbank Diffusion, which you can download for free from the Civit AI website. I'll leave a link down below. Just search for Inkbank, click on it, download it and save it into your Models StableDiffusion folder. Then hit the refresh icon and select the model. Now back to our Deforum tab. In the Run tab, let's leave the sampler to Euler A, but crank up the steps to a really high value, so maybe 50. Let's change the size to 768 by 452, so it has the right aspect ratio, and we can easily upscale the video to 4K later on. Let's enter a seed, because it really doesn't work well with the random seed, and choose a batch name, which will be the name of the folder where your images will be saved. Now let's go to the Prompts tab, where you can enter your positive and negative prompts, which will be the guide for StableDiffusion of what to render. Now to the Keyframe tab, which is basically the most important step. Leave the animation mode at 2D and the border at Replicate. I will set the cadence down to 1. Which means that every frame will be rendered. Set the strength to 0.75, which should give us a rather consistent render, and set the CFG scale to a very high value, so I'm using 18, which will force Deforum to stick rather closely to your prompts. Next, we want to make our video audio reactive, which means that we do need a music track, and let StableDiffusion react to our music. In this example, I want to use the zoom factor so that the movie is slowly zooming out, and when the music beats in, I want to have a very fast zoom in reaction. In order to achieve that, we will need a tool which is able to analyze our music and translate the changes in volume to a specific zoom factor for each frame. Fortunately, there is a free online tool which is able to do just that. I will leave a link down below. As a first step, Let's choose our audio file and select the frame rate, in my case 24. Now in the text box below you can see that the tool has generated a value for each frame of our music based on the mathematical function in the function field, where X stands for the volume of our music. Now let's delete the value in the function field and just enter X, and you will see that the values in the text box below are changing to 0, and then when the music sets in, it's moving up to higher values. What we need to do is find an appropriate function depending on what we want to achieve. As I said before, I want the video to slowly zoom out until the beat sets in, and then I want quick zoom ins according to the strength of the beat. I have found the right formula for that purpose, which is 0.99 plus x power of 4. Which means when there is no music, the value will be at 0.99, so that will be a slow zoom out. And when the beat sets in, it will add the value of the beat to the original value. So the value gets higher the louder the music is. And when the music dies down, it will continue zooming out. For your own purposes, the values might be different, so just play around with the formula, make some test renders until you are happy with your results. And when you're done, hit the copy string button below, then move over to your StableDiffusion web UI and paste the values into the zoom field. I will also change the angle to a very small value, maybe 0.1, which will give the animation a very small turn. And we need to change the max frames to the length of our music. You just need to take a look how many keyframes have been generated by the audio keyframe analyzer and enter that value. Last thing we need to check before starting to generate our video, and uncheck with image to image to exactly the amount of steps the slider specified. So let Deforum decide how many steps for each frame should be rendered. Then go back to Deforum and hit Generate. Once the render is finished, you will find your image sequence and an MP4 file in the folder which you specified in the Run section. Now that's it for part 1. I will wait until the render is finished and then move on to the second part, where we will create our dancing animation. Okay, it took a while, but now the render is finished and we can watch the movie. I'm just using QuickTime, add an audio track, and you can see that the video is in sync with the music. Next I want to add a dancing animation to the video, and in order to achieve that we are going to use batch image to image using the Controlnet extension. But first we will prepare some dancing footage with the help of Blender. A few days ago I have posted a video about importing Mixamo animations into Blender, exporting them as an image sequence and then feeding this image sequence into StableDiffusion. So I won't go deeper into this topic in this video. I would just recommend that you watch this video, which is also available on my channel on YouTube. And I will leave a link down below. So here we are in Blender, where I've already imported some animations from Mixamo. You will notice that we have a green background in our scene. And that's important because we can later remove this green screen and make it transparent in our video editing software. And our dancing model will seamlessly integrate into the audio-reactive part of the video, which we created before. Now how do we get this green screen? We need to open the shader editor and select the world settings. And we need to add a mix shader, duplicate the background node, change the color to green and plug it into the second shader node. Then we need to add a light path node and connect the is camera ray node to the factor. And that's all. The image sequence created by Blender should be exactly as long as our other video. We just head over to the video sequencer and import our audio file. you can see that the length of the audio file is 5598 frames at 24 frames per second. So let's switch over to the timeline and set the end frame to just that value. Also, you need to take care that the dancing animation has 5598 frames at least. I'm using a resolution of 2048 by 2048 pixels. You can see the frame rate is 24 frames per second. Now you only have to select your output folder and then hit render animation. An image sequence will be created in your output folder. Now back to StableDiffusion, choose Image to Image Batch, enter your positive and negative prompts. We stick with the standard resolution of 512 by 512. We can upscale it later. Let's set the denoising strength to 0.65 and the C to some fixed value. You may want to play around with these settings a bit before starting the final render, which I did. Now in the input folder comes the path to the output folder created by Blender, and the output folder is the location where the final images of that render will be saved. Now let's activate the Controlnet extension. Select Canny as the preprocessor and the same thing for the model. You can leave the rest of the settings as they are. Now hit the Generate button and your image sequence will be saved into your output folder. This will take a while, but once that's finished, we are nearly done with our final video. Just import both videos into your video editing software. I'm on my Mac, so I'm using Final Cut Pro, but basically you can use anything you like. Put the audio-reactive video into the background and the dancing animation to the foreground. Then apply a keyer to the dancing animation to remove the green background. Then play around with the size and position of the videos. Add your music track and any other additional features you want to add to your video to make it more interesting. I'm adding some text because that's important for this video. Then finally export your video from your video editing software and we are done. Hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments and see you next time.